Good afternoon, this is Mark from City Creek Bottoms Farmstead with a Fireside Tales today. I had filmed a video earlier part of the week, then we discovered that it ran for 2 minutes and shut off. So I'm having to redo this, and of course we was doing it at night with a campfire, but it's probably a good thing it didn't work out because the crickets and all the beetles and everything else around here, they were just drowning me out, and you probably hearing some of it now, so I'm hoping it's not real bad. So I've been off down on the Coosa Wildlife Management area today, looking for a cemetery that some of my great-great-great-grandparents are buried in. Me and Jonathan didn't find them. We had to walk some of those cutovers. It was hot down there. I'm going to have to wait till winter time to go back down there and look. But checked out a place that's kind of boogerish like too while I was down there. I might have to go back down there one night and get on top of one of them big ridges and see if I hear anything. But hope everyone's doing okay. Hope it's been hot here in Alabama this week. Been very hot. Looks like the temperatures are going to drop for some. Looks like we got some rain in the forecast next few weeks too. So I'm going to do a little something different tonight. I'm going to still talk about Creepy Mountain, but I'm going to kind of go about it a different way. And I got a couple of questions that were asked. They wasn't you on YouTube. These were asked by people face to face, which is what I really like. The first one I was asked was, how did this affect my faith in God and Jesus when I found out that they were boogers? But it didn't. If it did anything, it made it stronger, and I'll say this why. I can't quote you the exact verse in the Bible. I could go find it. It'd take me a little while, but I'd find it. That there's a lot of things we don't know about creation. Also, there's some things that happen after creation. Not saying that's what it is, but there's some things went on after creation, with some hybrids and some other things. So if you go back and read Genesis, you'll see where the angels came down. And we're doing a lot of genetic stuff. So I'm not saying that's what they are, because nobody knows what they are. I'm not an expert on this. I have my feelings about it, but I'm not an expert. So no, it did not shake my faith. In fact, it made me a little stronger. And there are some people in the Bigfoot world that says you can rebuke them in the name of Jesus and they'll leave you alone. I've heard of several people doing that, and they said it works. So, you know, if they get to bothering you, if you have a belief in Jesus, you know, you could rebuke them in His name and see what happens. Other question. Why am I doing a video on Bigfoot? Because I seen one, that's why. I mean, basically it's what got me interested was seeing one. Trying to figure out what they are. Figure out why a lot of people don't see them. I mean, and I'm not trying to be arrogant about this or anything. I mean, it was kind of a reality check. Everything that I've told you and what Keith has told you has been factual. It's happened. It's happened to multiple people around here. I don't know how many phone calls I've got in the past from people wanting to talk to me about this. It seems like once they talk to you, they go to feeling better. It's kind of like they go, well, thought I was losing my mind, and they don't want to tell people because they don't want to get ridiculed. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I don't care if somebody gets on me about it or not. I know what I saw, I know what I seen, I know what other people's experienced. I know what I've experienced on that hunting club, at my old property and other properties. And a lot of the people that I hang out with in the Bigfoot world are good friends. They're good people. They're good-hearted people and they're truthful people. If they're not, I wouldn't be friends with them. So, I know a lot of people say this don't go with homesteading. It kind of does, because a lot of the homesteaders once going to deal with these things. They could come up on your property, especially if you got chickens and animals. I know some people that used to have chickens come up missing. They've had hogs come up missing, calves, vegetables out of their garden, fruits out of their trees. I mean, one night a whole apple tree, the whole load of apples on one apple tree just disappeared. Deer didn't do that, possums didn't do that, coons, coyote. Something had to go up in that tree and get all them apples out in one night. Now how they toted them off, I don't know. They may have done figured out how to use buckets. I don't know. But anyway, I kind of wanted to clear that up. I still believe very strongly in my faith with the Lord Jesus. And I seen what I seen. So I'm going to tell the truth about what I seen, because I feel like people need to know there's stuff in the woods. A lot of people love to camp, hunt, and fish. And when you have a homestead, most of the time you're going to live in rural areas. Most homesteaders live in rural areas. I know some living in subdivisions and suburbs, and some even in towns, you know. Because, I mean, size of the land doesn't make it a homestead, you know. So, anyway, enough on that one. I'm going to go ahead and tell you about two little things that went on that were right around that time of 2007, that was right there in the area where I lived at. Two things that was probably pointing toward the boogers. During that time period, 2006, I was building another home on my same property. We sold the other house with 1 acre because we wanted a little bigger house. We wanted a bigger kitchen because, you know, doing canning, and you know, wanted this one. Plus, I wanted a small yard, so I left a lot of woods around this house. Of course, I still had pasture land and had my fields where, you know, that I was planting my crops on and stuff. Plus, I had at the time other leased land that was close by. So we decided to build another home. Well, this home was going in the back part of my pasture. So what I done, my friend lived across the highway about a half a mile. And he lived over where Cedar Creek actually goes through, where the name Cedar Creek comes from. Of course, I wanted to call it Cedar Creek Bottoms because my grandfather owned property on Cedar Creek for years, and then of course Rebecca comes from Cedartown, Georgia, and they have Cedar Creek over there. So, and both of them run into Coosa River. So anyway, I asked him could I bring my horses over to his pastures while the house was being built, till I could get time, because we had to take down the old fence, put up a new fence, and you know, of course, when you're building a home, you're busy with, because I was doing a lot of it myself, so very busy. Plus still working a public job, plus kids to raise. So, you know, that's kind of on the back burner because he didn't have nothing in there and he didn't care. You know, that's helping him keep from bush hogging so much. And so anyway, we had went on vacation down to Gulf Shores, Alabama. And I had to come back early because I had to go back to work. My family, a couple more days. And so we went down. I got a phone call from a friend that evening, the last day I was going to be there, about 7 o'clock. He said, hey, I want to let you know I found some gashes on one of your horses. He said, I've got it doctored up. A lot of us farmers use this blue lotion stuff. It's an antibiotic. It's good for open wounds and stuff. He said, I've done dressed it. And he said, I It looked like something tried to get him. And that's what he mean. He said, well, last night about 11 o'clock, we was in the bed, and said my 2 chihuahuas, he got 2 little chihuahua dogs, he said they just went crazy, barking. He ain't never heard them. And he said then he could hear the horses start running. He told his wife, he said, something's out there fooling with them horses. Of course, in his mind, he was thinking of coyote, maybe a pack of coyotes or something. That's what got the dogs stirred up. So he grabs his rifle, goes out the door. Of course, 2 dogs go with him. They usually won't run off from him. They usually stay with him, but they usually will go, you know, maybe 40, 50 foot in front of him. Well, this time they took off running toward the pasture. And he said it's just like they got so far and they just done a dead stop and done a turn around and come right back and went in the house. Because he left the door open. And he's like, what in the world? He said he'd never seen them do that before. Well, he's got his spotlight shining everywhere. Of course, my 2 horses have done come up to the closest part of the fence to the house. They had their butts to the fence and they was looking out toward his pond, so he knew whatever it was over toward that pond. So he took his light, and y'all have to forgive me, it's steamy out here today. Took his spotlight, couldn't see nothing, shined all around everywhere. Horses still in a dead stare across that field toward that pond. Of course, he knew the dogs done went in. He said, well, you know, he said, whatever it is, they don't even want to fool with it. He figured what happened, maybe it went in over around the pond, because that's back where the backside of Cedar Creek come through there. So whatever it was probably went back in the creek bottom. Well, he, you know, everything finally calmed down, so he went on in and went back to bed. Well, next morning, or next evening when he got home at work, I had asked him, you know, to feed the horses while I was gone. So he went down there to feed them, and that's when he noticed the big gashes over here on the horse's upper shoulder right next to the neck, which is, you know, about this far off the ground because them were big horses. And you know, he seen 2 gashes. And he said that was strange. He said both my horses were jittery. And of course, like I said, he was a farmer, you know, at one time, so, and he kept animals, so he happened to have some of the blue ointment and went up there and got it and put on the horse. And that's when he called me that night to tell me about it. And he just said it was all very strange, and you know, he didn't know what to make of it. Of course, I come home the next day before I went to work, went over and checked on them. Of course, they calmed down a lot more, and I looked at the gashes, and we went and walked out to the pond, looked around, didn't really see no tracks or nothing. Went down into the creek bottom looking around, didn't find nothing. So, I don't know, that's a strange one. He didn't smell nothing, didn't hear nothing. Now later on he did tell me, a few months later, he thought he heard something hollering out down there in that creek bottom one night, you know, about midnight. It woke him out of sleep. Of course, my horses were back over on my place by then, and of course he said his dogs went to barking, then they just shut up. So he was wondering if it was the same thing. And the other thing that went on, around that same time period, on the side of the road I lived on was what they called farm plots. A guy owned about 100-something acres. I wish I had bought that whole place. I should have back in, but I didn't. But anyway, he sold it off in about 20-acre tracts. And of course, I bought enough to have a pasture, and I bought enough to, you know, have, you know, corn, pea patches, watermelon patches, you know, plus a house site, plus with woods left, you know, the hunt in, and just have some woods around the house. So, of course, everybody else was about the same. There was probably about 10 houses, maybe, well, probably wasn't that many. I don't know, it may have been about 10 houses in there total. I just can't remember right off the bat. But up on the back end, this road, the road that come in there made like a horseshoe. I was in the middle, and another guy was right behind me, and then the rest of them was kind of on that horseshoe. Well, there's a trail of woods that come off the hunting club. It come into one landowner's property, and then there's woods that cross the road, and you could stay in woods all the way to my house from the hunting club. You could actually, and I have just go right up those set of woods, walk through my neighbor's edge of their place and walk into the hunting club and hunt that holler behind her house, which she knew I was doing it because I asked permission to cross her property. One day I happened to just run into her at the service station. She was getting fuel, and she was a corrections officer, and she was heading to work. And so she, not a lady that would be considered scared because she's working in a prison system. So, and dealing with prisoners. So we were talking, and I asked her how everything was going. She said, "Well, pretty good except for a peeping Tom." And I said, "What do you mean a peeping Tom?" She said, "Well, her husband, I think, worked night shift, if I remember correctly at the time, and I think she worked second shift. I want to say that's what I recall. But she said, I've had a peeping Tom 2 or 3 times there at the house." I said, "Well," and she said, "Every time I go out the door with a spotlight and a pistol, I can't find him. It's just like he runs off." And I'm sitting here, okay. I didn't think didn't think nothing else really about it. Well, after I figured out that the boogers were on the club, I went back up there one day, and she happened to be out in the yard. And she kept a few horses, and she was out there feeding her horses, and I pulled up, and I said, asked her how she's doing. She said she was doing good. I asked her, had the peeping Tom quit, and she said, "Yeah." She said, "I ain't had no more problems." I said, "Where's the peeping Tom at?" She said, "To my kitchen window." And I said, "You mind if I walk up there?" She said, "No." So we walked up there, and I looked, and I said, and I'm not going to call her name. I said, "Ma'am," I said, "that peeping Tom had to be 7, 8 foot tall, or he had a stool with him." And she looked, and she said, "You right." Because her window, the bottom eave of her window was right about here. I'm 6'1", and it was up in here because I could not look straight in her kitchen. And I said, how much of it was you seeing?" "Well, I seen the head and what looked like the part of the shoulder." And I said, "Ma'am, that's a big, tall man." I didn't want to come out and tell her what it was because I didn't want the woman to get nervous. She probably would have. May not, She said, "Well, you right." She said, "Well, we know to look for a tall man." I said, Yeah. I said, "I'm going to just leave that and be. She's not having no more trouble." So I left that kind of alone. I looked around and I didn't really see nothing. And I went back up there and hunted in that holler a few times and didn't see nothing. But I think they were coming down off the mountain at night, and that was one of their funnels to come into the bottom land. Which there's more in different places, and probably at different times they'd come in at different places. Probably wherever they was going to hunt at that night or scavenge for food. Her having horses, they may have been slipping in there trying to get in her horse feed, because they will eat horse feed. They'll get into it. They'll get in your chicken, rabbit feed. They'll steal your eggs. Every now and then they're kind of smart. They don't come in and get a bunch of chickens. It's kind of like they kind of come in and get one and wait a while and get another. When they started showing up at my place, that's when I started noticing some stuff. But we're going to get into that down the road. They'll, a lot of times on these big cattle farms where there's plenty of cows, they'll come in and get them a calf. Usually one that's not been born long, one they can catch pretty quick. Of course, they'll get goats, small hogs. Been a lot of reports about a lot of people seeing them with hogs. They must really like hog meat. In fact, today me and Jonathan seen some wild hogs down there on Coosa Management area. They got a lot of them down there. But he seen something blur go across the road. He said, "Did it look like a bear first?" And I said, "Well, could be. We're starting to get them back in this part of Alabama." And then we got up there and we kind of slowed down, and all of a sudden a little pig come flying out of the bush. He said, "Well, that wasn't the one I seen." He said, "The one I seen was huge." I said, "Well, that's probably the old sow." And there's a lot of people been hunting them down on that Coosa Management. I hope they don't never spread up here. I'd rather have tame hogs in a pen than wild hogs running around, because they will tear your properties up. They'll eat your crops. They'll work on your deer population, the fawns. They'll eat them too, just like a coyote will. Whatever's easy for them to get, they'll get it. So there are some things I was going to bring up, because I'd had them 2 questions about my faith and about why I was doing a video. So, you know, most of ours is about homesteading. I'm slowly getting used to using a camera, and I've got to learn how to talk better on here and explain things better and show you better. And I told Rebecca sometimes she's probably going to need to hold the camera while I work on stuff where I can show people. Pretty soon we're going to have some crops start coming in. We started getting green beans, tomato, squash. I noticed some of my peas had done bloomed. That means I'll have peas coming on pretty quick. My watermelons are running pretty good. My sorghum is about about waist high now. Cantaloupes, pumpkins, okra is all looking good. Some of our later stuff's looking kind of rough because it's just been so hot here. I mean, pretty much 2 weeks of 93, 94 degrees every day. Then at night time, I mean, not really cooling off. We had 2 nights went down in the 60s. That'd have been a good night to went up on the hunt club and listen to see, because a lot of times I've noticed the boogers when it's been real hot and then you have like a cool spell, especially several days of rain, seems like they get a little vocal sometimes. I don't know if they're happy or if they're hunting or what they're using, what the conditions is that makes them do that. Well, I hope everyone has a good weekend. Next week we'll get back on Creepy Mountain pretty good. I just want to go ahead and answer them 2 questions right off the bat, and then tell another little thing about right around the hunting club where I used to live. We'll be getting into more of the fall. Keith got into it a little bit, and I got into it a little bit beforehand. This time we're going to get on in the hunting season, deer season, with some different things that went on, and then we'll start trucking on through winter towards spring. Of course, 2008 is when everything really gets going. I mean, that's when we start doing baiting or food station. That's when we had the outing with Mr. Mike, Mr. Tall, Lori, Pat, Dan and Vicky, I think it was, and Jim King. Man, there was so many people there, I can't remember everybody, and I hate that. I used to remember everybody's name, but nowadays I can't remember everybody. And I want to thank everyone for supporting me on this. A lot of people hey, you need to do this, you need to tell people what went on. And I appreciate the people that supported me and commented and shared it and backed me up on it. I sure appreciate that. I sure appreciate, everybody's listening to me. I don't know if it helps anybody or not, but if me telling this stuff helps someone down the road with some kind of problem they have, if these things show up at their property, and there's a good chance. There's a very good chance. They get out and roam at night. They come off, there's a lot of them live right around town. So, I mean, I've got some reports from downtown Chicago that I'll be doing later on. Some from downtown Chillisburg. One right on the outskirts of Birmingham. I mean, 10 miles from downtown Birmingham, in a very busy area. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a good weekend. Like I said before, give us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share, comment. Please comment. If anything, I love comments. I love being able to come back and answer something if I can answer it. Let me know if you're just enjoying this. So, hey, it's good, Anyway, I'm going to get off here. It's just about dark. And I I'm gonna call it a night because I got to get up early in the morning and go over to my mom's and do some plowing over there before the stuff over there gets too tall, and maybe do a little bush hogging tomorrow. And anyway, I hope y'all have a good one. This is Mark from Cedar Creek Bottom Farmstead. Bye-bye.